Ah, sorry. It surprised me. I'm live and such. So, we're going to talk to David D. Hilster. Sorry. It surprised me. Yeah. I had to
Live
make
and
sure it's
such.
working.
So
The test.
we're going to talk to David D.
There we go. Okay, so now I can see the chat also, hopefully. Uh, yeah. All right. I gotta move this window around a little bit. Either both of the chat windows. It's kind of irritating. Anyway, I think I got everything I need. Anyway, so yes, David D. Hilster of DissidentScience.com and naturalphilosophy.org. Yes, should be here shortly. And we're going to discuss probably mostly the Nobel Prizes going to the silly LIGO nonsense. It's not even it's not even tested theoretical physics. It's just a bunch of people in a specialty saying we did something, and there's none of that supposed to be what science does, which is you verify something by doing the experiment again and again. Um, and you find other evidences that support the conclusion. So there's a whole bunch of new science created by this stupid LIGO thing. This idea of converting matter into bent space, and all the consequences that creates. And nobody's discussed any of those consequences. There's nobody giving a shit about whether or not any of that stuff is possible. And there's David. So hopefully everybody can see him. And his mic works. Let's test the mic.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, it's working. All right.
Yeah, if I get feedback, I may want to use a headset. Am I
Yeah.
getting feedback from you?
No, it's I'm fine and you're fine from my end. So
Okay.
we're
All
good.
right.
I'm a little
All
laggy,
right.
but I'm on Linux. I just decided to switch to Linux. So,
You're a versatile guy.
yeah, very brave. Yeah, after 10 years, I finally said, okay, it works good enough. But it actually works good enough. So anyway, Nobel Prize. Yeah, it was not a surprise, of course, and it's right up there with the Bob Dylan Nobel Prize in Literature, right? I mean, it's like Nobel's prizes have just given up all credibility, right? They give Obama the Peace Prize for doing absolutely nothing peaceful, except writing a book basically saying, "I want to kill Arabs." I mean, what the
Yeah,
hell?
yeah,
What the hell? So and apparently there's the world is the civilized world is apparently comfortable with this, and the intellectuals are all sitting around saying, "I'm okay with that." I mean, it is the definition of idiocracy, right? I mean, when you can't even give prizes for actual merit, I mean, you really are done now, right? I mean, when you can't do reward and punishment right, your game is over.
yeah, yeah. Well, we specifically get upset about the physics side because they set themselves up. They invent something like the Higgs boson. A good friend of ours, a person that's talked to our group many times and is involved with our group, has given us some talks at our conferences. Is Dr. Alexander Unziger, and I think I did a video on him. But he wrote the book called The Higgs Fake, and of course the Higgs Fake is about how particle physics really is just a bunch of invention. He is actually a physicist from Germany who is going around lecturing saying we should throw away all particle physics since the 1930s. And so, of course, the Higgs is a huge machine. It's part of the particle physics world where they've been inventing particles forever. And they set themselves up, built an enormous machine with an enormous amount of money and resources, and these people pretty much live in a bubble. They're very much like the politicians in our country who live in a bubble. They don't see the real world out there, and they
Yeah,
set themselves up to give themselves a um, immediately after they found it. Of course, they awarded the physics Nobel Prize in physics, and the same thing happened here with LIGO. LIGO is the detector of gravity waves, and of course,
yeah,
that's a different story.
well, both subjects have these huge empties in the sense that the Higgs is like these other strange particles they find that when you actually hear the lectures, like Susskind lectures, I listened to a few, and he actually admits that these particles aren't actually particles. They're holes. Okay, so it's like when an electron leaves an atom or something, it would sort of leave a deficit in the charge field. And that's essentially what these particles are. They're the antiparticles, the whole class of particles that are antiparticles. They aren't actually things that move and go places and all that kind of crap. They're actually just negative spaces left when you evacuate something. And so that's so it's not even theoretically it's not even being described accurately, these things. And the Higgs field
Well,
is,
are you saying that you believe the Higgs boson is real?
no, I'm arguing that clearly they can't even get the simplest kind of language correct. They can't even identify the difference between a hole in the ground and a cement block, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's
okay, the Higgs boson is a perfect example because it's not even a Higgs boson particle. It's a friggin' field, for F's sake, okay? I mean, they can't even get that part right, right? It's the Higgs field, right? They'll always, when you always try to tie them down to what this particle is, they'll always revert to, no, it's like bent space. It's a field.
yeah, yeah. No, it's right. It's permeated through their whole language. I would suggest to any of your viewers to go, and you will. He's interviewed some of these high and mighty people, Nobel laureates and other people, and a couple of them he actually got to interview. I don't know how he does it because he's got a reputation, but somehow he gets them to talk. And you don't have to be a master's in linguistics to listen to these people and understand that what they talk about and the terminology they use is just utter nonsense. And it's nonsense on top of nonsense. And you can see in those interviews, Unziker has, I guess, two cameras, and he once in a while puts a camera on himself, and you see this inquisical look on his face. But basically, like we said, Unziker said, you can throw out all particle physics because it's all basically what he calls, and I agree with him, arbitrary packages of things with arbitrary attributes. And you hear the spin and the isospin and a half a spin, whatever that. How can you have a half a spin? Quarters of charges, all kinds of things that just aren't real. So you have to try to make sure you don't waste your time on the minutia of unicorns, of subatomic particles of unicorn, when the unicorn itself doesn't exist. I mean, and you're talking about spaces and that exists at the subatomic level as well.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not entirely comfortable with throwing everything out. So that kind of rhetoric always, is a little bit too extreme, because in the sense, there obviously is some elements to experiments and to advancement.
So you believe there's quarks?
Well, no. I personally don't believe it's necessary to do that kind of dissection, because we don't have the instrumentality to do it. So I would argue that a quark could just be a weak electron. It could be a million different things, right? I mean, a muon could just be 5 electrons stuck together, kind of a thing. I mean, there's all kinds of they're identifying something with an energy package, and then they're giving it a label that's unique when it may not be a unique thing. Just as I think a neutron is just a proton and electron stuck very close together. So, I mean, those kind of arguments can be made that they're giving a label to something because we actually can't see what it's really made out of, which is the same. It's a bicycle, okay? It's a bicycle with gold pedals instead of silver pedals,
Well, the thing I would say, first of all, about quarks, they were invented. They were not observed. And that's one of the problems that actually Einstein himself started that kind of precedence in the 20th century. And that is, I make up the rules, and if those rules don't fit my theory, then the rules are the universe is wrong. And so it's just like strings. Strings are also invented. So what Unziker is saying, since the quarks, the subatomic particles, electron, neutron, proton, at least something in those areas, those seem pretty solid. But as for anything below that, you can pretty much
I'm not
throw it out. So I think that's what Unsker is saying, and I do agree. You can't invent something and then go look for it. You got to find it and then find what it is.
Well, like I said, I just think it's more of a semantic issue where they're just mislabeling a thing that they actually have found a distinction, a difference, a nuance of behavior, and they're just mislabeling the nuance of behavior a new particle rather than recognizing that it could be that it's just because of the condition of the thing. Just like when they talk about spin on electrons, they're not really necessarily talking about spin, they're talking about its momentum, which, the vector of its momentum.
Well, they're arbitrary attributes. They're not. They're not even arbitrary. Yeah, there's no physicality to them. I mean, that's the thing.
I want to argue there is, though. So you can say they're arbitrary, but they're experimentally observed. So I'm just saying the phenomenon of an.
Wait a minute. Okay, slow down. You're using language experimentally observed. Let me give you opinion on that. In my opinion, when particle accelerators are based on this idea that the faster you smash things together, the smaller bits will come out. Now that is an assumption that they make. It's not necessarily how and what they're observing. So if you go ahead and smash things a million times a second, and you record millions and billions and trillions of these paths, all you have are the remnants of the paths of what's happening. And what they do is they say they're going to, it's really hard. That's the number one thing. And then they say that they have to find this particular path. Now, if you go long enough, you can find Mickey Mouse's ears in any kind of paths that you look at. And they say that this is repeatable. When you look at mathematics, that's one of my areas I've got a degree in is mathematics. They use their statistical process, and the way they look for these things do not add up to something that they are, for instance, they can't go in there and then every time make a quark appear, what they say is a quark. And in fact, one quark, they couldn't find that path for so long. They actually had 900 people in the early 1990s put their names on papers, say that in 6 months, these are the ways we're going to find it, and they found it. So I understand what you're saying, but the whole process is really, really suspect. So I know I listen to what you're saying, but I can't buy it because their whole methodology, mathematically and statistically, and the way particle physics is done in trying to smash things together. I sort of use this analogy with the lay people this is a particle accelerator. Basically, you have a car and you're going to say, I know there are 4 tires on that car. So if I take a cannonball and I smash it enough times, the wheels are going to come off with this trajectory. Now, anyone knows that if you do that, how in the heck, all you can see is trajectories. You can't see the actual thing. How in the heck do you know what you're firing at is going to be that way? And plus, they can't reproduce it that easily. They can't like shoot over on this side of the protons when they hit in this way. They're always going to get this particle. So it's just a smash-a-thon looking for arbitrary things that they make up, arbitrary paths that they predict, and then they say they finally found it. Oh, there's the one out of the trillion we found. So their entire methodology it's not even suspect. It's just.
Well, look, I've made these arguments. I mean, I talk about atom smashers being basically smashing, crashing 2 cars at 100 miles an hour, and then taking these silly parts that are left over and say these are natural parts of a car, like a steering wheel smashed into the dashboard or something, and they say there's a real part. It's not a real part. It's an abnormal part created by the extraordinary.
No, I see. No, you're absolutely right.
So,
I think
I'm not a fan.
Your point is well.
I'm the least. No one would call me a fan of particle physics. No one would call me a fan of the standard model at all. My only argument is, in terms of making our argument, it just people think they react badly when you say throw the whole thing in the garbage, okay? Because they're going to say, no, I have an MRI machine that works. No, I have certain technology that works. So you can't deny its existence because obviously these wrong, okay? Maybe they got the right answer for the wrong reason, but they did get some right answers, okay? And so I'm just talking from a pragmatic sense that it doesn't do much good to say throw everything out because
but you have
the people we're going to have this conversation with are not going to react well to that rhetoric.
There's two things. No, there's two things in your argument. Number one, you have to listen to what I said. I said I agree with Unsker, and actually I would go back a little farther. But he says throw everything out after 1930. Clear on that. So it's not throwing everything out. It's throwing the parts where they invent and they pretend to find. That's what he's saying. And number two, I'm not too worried trying to talk to physicists or people who buy all this and who get into this bubble world and into all the lingo and talk the lingo and write the lingo. You're not going to convince them ever. It doesn't matter. No matter what you say, no matter what kind of model you come up with, they're going to die, and that's when they will stop believing it, when they're dead. So what we need to do is get young thinkers, people, or other people who are not in those areas that are predisposed to saying that how can all these people be right, to the peer pressure, and do what we are doing and cultivate those critical people and critical thinkers that really, well, we'll see that, because you're never going to convince the mainstream. And so throwing all out since 1930.
Those insults don't do any good. I think those that way of diagramming the argument doesn't do any good. Yes, they have a bias. We can agree on that. We can agree they're not doing any fair analysis. Okay, but this is like a trial. Okay, and you have to be lawyerly. And so in a sense, we have to demonstrate that the other side's lawyer is cheating. Okay, we have to go to the judge and make the argument. And the judge is these common citizens, the scientists the amateur scientists who are impressed by the technology, impressed by the degrees, okay, and impressed by their rhetoric and impressed by the fact that it works sometimes and all of that crap. And we have to make the argument to them. They're ultimately the judge. The only reason why these talking heads have the status they have is because the engineers out there, all the common scientist types, okay, think these guys are as honest as they are. Okay, they think these talking heads, okay, have done the analysis for them, and they trust them. And we have to make the argument that they're not worthy of the trust. We have to demonstrate.
Well, I do have a different view on that.
Well, it's clear we have a different
view.
I'm just saying pragmatically, I don't think.
No, that's why we talk. That's why you discuss, right? My view is that the silent majority thinks this is all malarkey. I mean, I'll give you a good example. My father, he was an electrical engineer. He had a degree in physics engineering, never used it. When he was in college, he just thought special relativity and a lot of this stuff's malarkey. Even these particles. If you talk to a lot of engineers, you talk to even particle physicists themselves, a lot of them say it is. And so if you look at the 99.99% of, or probably even 99.999% of all scientists on Earth are not theoretical physicists. And because of that, I think that the silent majority of those people who read this stuff basically have this attitude of, wake me up when there's something real. I think that the average person doesn't believe in parallel universes and doesn't believe in 20 dimensions. These people that a lot of times when we're intellectuals, well, I don't consider myself an intellectual because I myself use the idea of intellectual being a person who wants to be perceived to be smart instead of actually being a critical thinker. But the critical thinkers that are out there, I honestly think when they read all this stuff that's just so bizarre, they're basically in their mind saying, well, this is all going to be cleaned up because someone's going to come along and do something very different, and all this malarkey will be thrown out. So we all a lot of times are living in bubbles of intellectuals, and I found that with my movie. I made it. My documentary, it took 8 years to make. When I sent it out to 80 film festivals around the world, I quickly discovered that intellectuals were the gatekeepers at all the film festivals, and they don't understand or study physics closely. They don't understand or study cosmology closely. They are the kind that go to parties, and I know because I hung out with the best of the documentarians when I lived in LA for 10 years. These guys are all intellectuals, and that is they try to do one-upsmanship, just like in LA. Very shallow people, and they read the latest. Oh, did you hear about the latest on LIGO? Oh, you don't know about the 3 physicists? And they read everything as gospel. They talk the talk, they walk the walk, and what they do is they have, excuse my language, pissing games to try to show who's smarter than someone else. These are the gatekeepers. The only person I even got close was to getting in the festival was a festival in Oxford, England, because they don't like Einstein. And the guy really liked it, but they are worried about the controversy. But the people who are what we call quote unquote intellectuals, both in Hollywood and intellectuals on the media, and those people who write about all this, Margaret Wortham's a very good example of this. These people are in this bubble. They're in the intellectual bubble. They're afraid to go against it. And I believe that if you go to NASA scientists and you go to SpaceX, these people are not all saying, oh yeah, I believe in parallel universes, I believe in the Higgs boson and all that stuff. I think a lot of the older type engineers, those people do not buy this malarkey. They sort of like, yeah, I don't believe it. So I do think that the silent majority is bigger than those people who buy all this stuff.
I think if the silent majority existed in any other form but cranks and Tesla devotees, then they would have a voice, okay? They would matter. Because obviously the media is making a ton of these fluffy documentaries on quantum mechanics. This is what they're just eating it up, okay? They just eat up this conversation about the woo and the strangeness and the mysteriousness, and that seems to be the only kind of the only thing they're watching. So I'm just saying that it clearly works, it clearly sells, and so I think the argument, like I said, the negative side is that I think part of the silent majority who is the anti are just the climate change deniers. They're the Trump guys, who don't want to think any subject is complicated. They think every subject is simplistic, and
well, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Well, I'm just saying that.
I mean, I already did a video on
looking like that is my primary argument. As soon as we look like one of the truther, we're in big trouble. So that to me is the first job.
Let me tell you about that. That's a whole. I understand, but that whole thing, it's not a distraction. First of all, the idea that most of this is wrong is starting to become believed because there's more information that we have out there. Secondly, how you sell it, it doesn't matter. I have this thing I've learned with my documentary. People said, you should change your documentary title to something else, and people would have accepted it. It's not true. It's like when you say that relativity is wrong, even if you say it in the most wonderful way, I call it the dead soldier syndrome. And I've seen this for 10 years or more. And that is, if you say to yourself, well, we just got to couch it better. We've got to say it better. We've got to say it in a way that doesn't offend people. Well, here's what's going to happen. They're going to take a look at my documentary and say, good, Einstein and relativity and whatever it's called. Let's say I just called it that. And then people watch the documentary. The people at the film festivals, the interns, they'll watch the films and they screen them. And they'll say, oh, what's this film about? Well, they have this title, but it's all about people who think Einstein's wrong. And then they'll throw it out because the content is still going to turn the people off. You can say it any way you want, but what happens is, I found that out with the neutrino.
I don't agree.
You can say it any way you want. The moment you say the neutrino doesn't exist, they come at you, and then doesn't matter what words you use.
I don't think most intellectuals, most college degrees, physicists or scientists or engineers are that dishonest. So I think what I think they have is a bigotry. Okay, they've biased by their professors, they've been biased by their teachers, they've been biased by the media. Okay, and they've put a very high standard for anybody competing with that theory. So we have to jump over a much higher bar than the existing theory is going to be tested by. But that's why I would argue that we have to take the conversation to those people, because those are the people who define, okay, what's going to be acceptable as a Nobel Prize winner, what's going to be acceptable as a theory. Now, if we point, let's talk about LIGO a little, right? Okay, I mean, LIGO I would point out, is the most bizarre part of the whole mess. is this idiotic notion that you can take solar masses and convert them into bent space, essentially. Okay, not any other form of energy, some kind of gravity energy. All right, something Einstein never even speculated about being possible at all. And we're talking about 3 solar masses. So it's the energy of, even a supernova releases only like 0.0001% of the sun's energy. It basically explodes and just blows a bunch of pieces out. We're talking about the complete annihilation of 3 suns. Okay, that is their entire lifetime, 10 billion years of giving off energy. All that energy released at one moment in time in this huge wave that's supposed to go out. And we don't know whether it's a depression or a lump, right? We don't know what kind of wave it is. Is it a positive wave or a negative wave, right? And it's theoretically, it's preposterous. And there's no evidence anywhere of this being a verified theory, in the sense that it hasn't, no one's ever come to this conclusion for any other reason. And they only came up with it because it's the only way they can make a sound loud enough for this stupid thing to hear, because it hears by watching the earth vibrate. I mean, it's a silly notion that you can hear sounds in space by listening to the earth vibrate. I mean, it's, the amount of energy required to vibrate the earth is an insane amount of energy. And so we have this is, and nobody's even questioned it. And so you say to yourself, well, yeah, that has to be shown to the public, that nobody tested this theory. Nobody analyzed the consequences of what this wave would do as it traveled through space, right? What would a gravity wave this intense do? Well, clearly it would bend light, right? We could agree that if it has enough energy to shake the earth, it's certainly going to bend light as it travels through space. So it would be doing that Star Trek woo-woo thing where all of a sudden, boing, all the stars vibrate and shake. We should be seeing it right now because it's still moving. So how come we're not seeing it move through space and distort every image we see as it moves through space? I'm just saying there's no excuse for that. No excuse for nobody asking any questions.
Well, there's 2 things, I think. Number one, my argument for LIGO is pretty simple. We don't have any real model for light, for gravity, for even a lot of things that happen and how those things even interact with atomic structure, subatomic structure. So we don't have any real physical models for that. Some of us do, and we're looking at it. But so the idea that you even know what all these things are, and then secondly, are bold enough to say the detectors will detect those things when you don't even know what space, time, light is. You don't even know what gravity is.
Well,
those things are true. They don't know what those are. The second thing is what you're also saying is why, well, we have to show people. There's a component that trumps everything. There's actually a couple of components. One is emotion, and that is the emotional feel of wanting to fit in and wanting to know something. The idea of an intellectual at a party. If you put enough peer pressure on people, they'll believe anything. And so there's a peer pressure that's there. So you can say, if you're the only one going against it, you have to go against that. The other thing is money, and that is people make their livings off of these things. So you have students in my film that will say, hey, I will forego truth and science to get my position. So you have so many other factors that are emotional things. You have to make a living in this world. So that emotional tug will make you believe and say things that you might not necessarily, in the end, if you're giving, truth serum, that you would believe. And like I said, the other thing, like I said, with the LIGO, I don't take any of that, because I would have to say, he says, when someone asks me about LIGO, I go, well, we don't know what light and gravity and subatomic particles and their interactions really do. We don't even know how light turns into a rainbow unless you have your own model for that, which we do. Well, how can you say you're detecting anything when you don't know what it is that's coming at you? Nothing. They don't know anything about.
Well,
so to me,
I'm just saying, I don't think it's constructive, because you're making a blanket statement about everything, and I'm saying they have quantized it. They have hard evidence for what it does. They don't know how it does it. I would agree with you there. They don't know how it does it, but they certainly know what it does, and that has been.
Well, no, I don't agree. I think you say they say they do, but we critical thinkers, we need to get look at the data. We got to look at it, and we have to see what model they have.
Any hard evidence of a photon traveling faster than the speed of light?
We don't know. Look, you're saying light is a wave,
light,
a particle,
quanta of
but
light. I mean,
they don't know what it is.
Quantized it. They have quantized it. I mean, the thing that Einstein got his Nobel Prize for was actually a good thing. That was actually good science. Okay, I mean, the photoelectric
Okay, we can disagree on that. That's true.
Well, you don't think the photoelectric effect is a real effect?
The photoelectric effect is a fact, but what they're saying about it and the conclusions they make aren't correct.
Well, I'm not saying every conclusion made by it. I'm just saying the fact that they found this relationship between the quantizable nature of the energy going in and the fact that you can have a different effect that demonstrates that, you know, this can't be some sort of spread out wave thing. It has to be a quantizable energy packet. So if we call them energy packets, I don't care if we come up with another name for this stuff. I'm just saying, to say that we don't understand what it does, I think that's just going too far. We do understand what it does. We don't understand why it does.
No. Let me tell. I'll give you there's a guy. He was at. I don't know his name. He was going to be in my movie, but he pulled out of it. But he came to a conference of ours once, and he's now it's been over 40 years. He's an expert, a photonics expert. His entire life of over 40 years has been studying light. Here's his statement. I'm going to paraphrase what he stood up and said at our conference probably about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. Here's what he said. And this is a guy whose entire life it is to study light.
I don't want his credentials. I want his evidence. But go ahead. What did he say?
Well, what I'm saying, this is a mainstream guy.
I know it doesn't matter what
this is a mainstream guy.
Again,
no, but
saying something. Anybody can say, I saw a UFO. I mean, you know, you have to show up with the evidence.
I'm going to say it again. Maybe you're not getting it, but he has been studying light. That is, he's been using light in the lab. He's been using things to detect it, lasers, all of that. He's been around it. He's tinkered with light in his lab for over 40 years.
Well, I'm just saying.
And here's what he said. Okay, he said basically, and again, he's a mainstream scientist. He goes to mainstream conference. He says, this is what we know about light. Something we call light, which we don't know what it is emitted, and we don't know how that works. Second, it travels through space, and we have no idea how that happens. It gets to us, and it hits our detectors, and we get a detection from that, and we absolutely have no idea how that works. He says, that's what we know about light. Now, if we're talking about the LIGO experiment, and we have these people who are mainstream photonics saying this, they're going to look at this and say, something's happening, yeah. If it's gravity waves, we don't know. Are they even detecting anything? We don't know. Well, so until that really gets to be examined, and we really have models for all of this,
I'm not going to compare our knowledge of photons with our knowledge of gravitational waves, because obviously I would say our knowledge of photons is we have a very good knowledge base about photons, and we have a very weak knowledge base about gravity waves. The only knowledge base we have is from LIGO and their stories. We have no evidence to verify what they're saying. Not one single experiment that verifies any of the theoretical basis for what they say they heard. I mean, it just doesn't, it makes zero sense to sit there and give people Nobel Prizes for unverified theoretical physics. I mean, it's completely
Well, then you have a real problem with quantum mechanics. I mean, you're talking about photons are actually totally well known.
I'm
well,
not
then
saying
you've got the whole problem of the reason quantum mechanics has gone off the rails.
We know what they do.
Photons,
we don't know how they do it. I said that clearly. We know what they do. We don't know how they do it.
But you're saying the photon is well established. Then you have to go against.
The do part is well established. The speed of light is well established. The energy that a photon can convey is well established. How much information value it has is well established. I said, give me one piece of evidence for light moving, anything moving faster than the speed of light. Just give me one friggin' piece of evidence.
GPS satellites. Ron Hatch, who has 30 patents in GPS, he says he sent to NASA this year a statement where NASA couldn't figure out a problem. He said, the speed of light, you have to add the speed of the, that's accounted for the speed of the GPS satellite to the speed of light on one way direction, and then you have to subtract it on the other. And in fact, that gets rid of a 0.56 picosecond value. So here's a guy with 30 years, 30 patents in GPS writing NASA about how you add a speed of light to the speed of the GPS. So there you go.
Yeah, and
You
I could do
wanted
the same
a
thing. I
real
could
life
reverse
example.
engineer any mathematical equation any day. Give me a mathematical equation and tell me you have to make it look like Bugs Bunny, and I'll make it look like Bugs Bunny. Okay, that's the too easy. Oh yeah, we added this.
Wait a minute. I'm not. Did you hear what? No.
We made it go faster one way, and then we made it go faster right.
Whoa.
There's no way to detect it, no way to prove it. I just say that's what happened. It went faster than the speed of light, and then it went faster than the speed of light in reverse. I mean, that's just too simplistic.
Well, I'm sorry. This guy uses GPS all the time, and they use this in their calculations.
The
So
consequences are going
what you're
faster
saying?
than
You
the
asked me
speed of
for
light.
wait,
I
Gary.
asked for
You
evidence.
asked me for something. I gave you that something, and then you say it doesn't matter. So how can this be?
It's not evidence.
I gave you an example, and you just say doesn't matter. Why
like
ask for
Einstein
example
throwing
then?
his
Why did you
equation
ask me
at
for an
me.
example?
Like Einstein just saying, "Here's my equation, I win." Okay, that's not evidence. That's not evidence that space is bent. That's not evidence that time and space are connected together.
No, I was talking about, you were saying how speed of light was constant, and I was giving you an
saying
example
evidence.
of where.
That's not evidence. Again, I'm just going to say again. A guy shows up with a formula that adds it and then subtracts it. Okay, but it's totally undetectable. Okay, how is that evidence?
They send a signal from what? No, they send signals between GPS satellites and the ground. When they send those signals, they arrive in a certain time, and they can calculate the speed. And what happens is they're off by 0.56 picoseconds.
You're saying
and the way that's changed, the way you can find out what is that anomaly is you find out that when you factor in the speed of the satellite, all of a sudden they work out, which means the signals that they calculate at the speed of light are not actually going, that they're actually going faster on the way there and slower on the way back.
I'm just saying that's testable. Okay, something going faster than the
that is no. I'm saying that's what they.
I don't want a mathematical equation. I want an experimental test that demonstrates it. Okay, because if you go faster than the speed of light,
this is done with GPS every day. NASA has no idea. The guy gave him this answer. You're not hearing that?
I have a formula. That's my proof. The formula is the proof. No, the formula is not the proof. The proof is in an experiment.
You send a signal. When you send a signal, an electromagnetic wave. You can measure the speed by the time and the distance. We know that. So this is an experiment. It's a very precise experiment. They drive tractors to centimeter accuracy on the ground.
You're not getting to the experiment. Doesn't demonstrate the speed of the signal. To demonstrate the speed of the signal, if I want to say the rabbit runs really fast, I have to compare it to the turtle. I have to compare it to something else that we know has a speed before I can say, yes, the rabbit's actually going faster than the turtle. You can't just say it is because a mathematical equation says so. You have to say it is with an experiment that demonstrates it.
Okay, I will say it again. I'm repeating myself. I'm not sure you're hearing it. When you send signals that are electromagnetic waves between instruments, that's an experiment.
It has to be compared to something, a control. Okay, you can't do.
It's compared to what is known to be the speed of light.
No. Again, how can you compare it when you're putting the clock's time on the satellite, okay, from the Earth, all right, and then you're going to count how far it gets here. You have to have a control. That means you have to have another satellite in space doing the measuring.
These calculations are done, and they have lots of people looking at them.
Okay, so you think that's hard evidence?
You're questioning their methods.
I'm questioning the strength of the evidence.
Well, the strength of the evidence is so great that NASA is asking people to solve it, and they had solved it with a C plus V.
Any back-ass word of writings on the back of a postcard. Somebody can write an equation. I know this because I've done it myself. Anybody can write an equation.
So you're calling Ron Hatch.
Yes, you can reverse engineer anything. I'm just saying. No, I'm not saying about Ron Hatch. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying if you're going to make a bold claim in this real world, you're going to make an extraordinary claim. Well, then you have to have at least ordinary evidence. At least ordinary.
Oh, it is very extraordinary. They do it. He's been doing it for 30 years and has 30 patents in it. Yes, he's quite wealthy from it. So obviously he's doing something.
Sending signals faster than the speed of light for 30 years.
No, it's been going at the speed of light plus a satellite without being known because they're getting precisions now that are so great. NASA asked that question and answered it. I don't know what to say more. I've said that a couple times.
They're wasting their time when all they have to do is send, if they want to talk to somebody on Mars, okay, like Mars is like whatever 27 minutes away or something, whatever the number is. So if they want to send signals to their satellites on Mars, all they have to do is relay it to a satellite that's moving around the Earth at a proper speed, and they can add to the speed of light. So all they have to do is make something go fast enough, like even that Pluto probe that went really fast, and they can send faster communications to Mars. They can break the speed, the light speed barrier. That's the consequences of this, and I don't believe that can happen. So yes,
Why
we
not?
agree on that. I have to see evidence of it before I'm going to believe something as reliable as the speed of light through all of known human history is all of a sudden breakable, that we can break it.
Well, there's another person and their evidence, and they've given a paper on. It's very interesting. Can't remember Sutherland, one of the guys, and he's looked at the speed of light, which has been he claims has been changing over the last 400 years, and they looked at the statistical evidence for that it's getting faster, and that may be related to the Earth expanding, and our measurements on the Earth. But you have to look at these things and look at these people's arguments for them. So it's very intriguing. Barry Sutherland, that's his name. So for anybody in your audience who wants to look that up, he did an extraordinary analysis, statistical analysis of people's measurement of the speed of light, which has actually, I believe, I can't remember, I think it's slowing down. So it's he's shown statistically over the last 400 years that, in fact, that it has been slowing down. And then, of course,
the electron has changed too, and the mass of the proton has changed because they're really hard to measure. Something going 3 million meters per second is a little bit tricky to measure. So the fact that every measurement hasn't been perfectly accurate, I don't think we're going to. I'm not going to take.
But here, let me. One of the things that we do as critical thinkers, and this is what I do. When he came up with that, and I looked at it, I go, well, that seems funny because I thought it was just inaccuracy myself. So what do? You look at the person's presentation, you look at the data they've collected, you look at the conclusions they make. That's what critical thinking is. In fact, we have a meme on our website that talks about that. You should always come in with anything with a skepticism, but you should also allow that to be a possibility. And those of people in your audience, what I would say to them before you go out and just say, oh, that's funny, and throw it away without looking at it, my suggestion is you look at it, because I had that same feeling and thought. But then when I looked at it and saw the statistical evidence, then it started making me think. And then on many of us who have models of the universe for light, for gravity, physical models, and for Earth, the Earth has been gaining mass at the subatomic level. Those kinds of things, the combining of nucleus with electrons inside the Earth, those kinds of things, it gives us one more piece of the puzzle, how the universe works. So my feeling is that when you hear something like that, what happens, especially from a colleague of mine who I think does great work, is a very, very good critical thinker, I say, okay, let me look at it and make that judgment for yourself. So I would say to your listeners that somebody like Barry Sutherland and the idea that the speed of light has been slowing down, it doesn't mean that the speed of light itself necessarily could be slowing down. It could be that our measurements and the mass increase that happens on the Earth over time causes that measurement to change.
It wouldn't matter so if we're going to talk each other's theory, in my theory, it'd be totally irrelevant because all the forces move at the speed of light. So if you change the speed of light, it wouldn't make any difference because basically everything would change. And so you're just changing, it's like changing an infinite frame rate.
Yeah, that's what special relativity is. So that if that
those
are the same assumptions of special relativity.
I don't believe in special relativity, so that's not what.
But you have the same assumptions as they do.
I don't have the same assumptions.
You just said those assumptions are true. That is, they're all based on the speed of light.
So you're saying there's not the speed of magnetism and the speed of gravity isn't, in your opinion, demonstrated to be the same as the speed of light.
Oh, it's very similar to the speed of light. Absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all I said. So you're saying that's an assumption.
No, the assumption you said is everything is geared off of.
You said
everything comes off of the speed of light.
Yes,
I
those are the only
forces
that exist are gravity, magnetism, and light. There's no other forces. So everything that moves in the universe moves because one of those forces does the moving. So I'm just saying it doesn't matter if I change the speed of all of them, I will not be able to perceive it because I have nothing to compare it to. There's no force outside the basket of change, so I have nothing to make a relativistic comparison. I can't say it's going faster than the rabbit. It's going faster than it was historically, which I recorded over here in the historical box. I have nothing to compare it to. So it could change tomorrow and be twice as much, and I wouldn't even notice because everything else is going to be impacted.
That's the Michael Morley experiment. Yeah, that's exactly what you're saying. So you agree with the Michael Morley experiment.
Okay, if you're going to just keep cliche calling me a communist, I'm going to get a little pissed off. I don't believe in special relativity. Michelson-Morley was an idiotic experiment. Okay, it doesn't even
look. I'm listening to your words.
Well, and you're just
I'm not calling you any names. I never called you a name.
You believe in Einstein. You believe in Michelson-Morley. No, I don't.
No, what I'm saying is that you say that the measurement of light and the speed of light and the change of light, that's Lorentz, that's Michelson and Morley, and they say those sorts of things. I'm not calling you names. I'm not getting upset. What I'm saying is, from your words, which I have to get your words and try to understand them, that you're saying that we can't perceive a change in light because everything's related to that. There are people who have those same kinds of assumptions, and those people are Lorentz, Michelson, Morley.
I'm sorry, they were ether theorists. I'm not an ether theorist, so again, I don't accept being classified.
Special relativity.
Like Stalin,
no, what I'm saying is that I said Michelson and Morley
anybody else. My theory is my theory. It's not somebody else's theory, so I'm not going to be classified as one of them.
I'm only listening to your words and what you say and what other people say. I was making comparison.
You just said I'm a Morleyite. I'm a Lorenzerite. I'm an Einsteinite. You just did that 3 frickin' times in a row.
You agree. No, what you're saying is that you say that you agree that the speed of light, and if it changes, we couldn't observe that. And those people all believe that too. I'm not saying you.
All the forces.
But if you say that and then disagree with them, you have a paradox. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying there's no paradox if all the forces move the same speed. If light, magnetism, and gravity all move the same speed, and if any change happens to all 3 of those things, I simply just made the point that then we have no force, we have no rabbit to compare the turtle to.
No, I'll leave it at that. So no problem. But anyways, I think one of the things for me and getting back to the Nobel Prize is a frustration of seeing these things and then trying to figure out what to do. I know in the frustration a lot of times for people working on their own ideas. You have your model you're working on. We have our model. Other people have their models. People who do see the problems in mainstream physics, the people giving prizes to absurd things, not understanding really what's happening, regardless of what that description of what that's happening is. What do you do as a person like ourselves who are critical thinkers who are trying to advance new ideas and also get people to see the problems in
that's
mainstream science?
I said before, though, is we have to quit advancing new ideas and we have to be focused entirely on forcing the trial to be about O.J. Simpson, so to speak, not all the peripheral stuff. So instead of, we're in court and we're talking about how bad their evidence is, okay? They have this shitty pile of evidence on the table, a bunch of cartoon drawings, a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of rubbish. And our job isn't to say, look at our great desk over here with all this fancy stuff we've built. We've got to go to that desk and point out how all their evidence is garbage. All right, not all of it, but the substantial pile of their premises and assumptions are nonsense. And we have to stay focused on that, and we can't open our mouths about our own little theories, because as soon as we do that, okay, our unproven theories.
Well, see, you're looking at
that becomes a distraction, and now we can be subject to the same kind of examination. I mean, it's not about having our theories tested, it's about having their theory tested, because there's the one.
Scientific advancement doesn't work that way. I'm just saying,
there's the ones on the hill. Yes, it does work that way. They own the territory. They own the high ground.
Newton had the same problem as we have. Newton had the same problem. What happens is that what you have to do is you find the problems. You then find thousands of people who are finding those problems the same way. We've got a catalog of almost 3,000 people. There's another guy in France who's cataloged dissident people working out the mainstream that are very serious scientists He's has almost 5,000 of those people. Then what happens is you have a small but a vital community. And the same way with Newton. Everyone thinks that Newton and all his things, he was praised and he was ahead of Cambridge because of his work that he did. It's not true. He spent the rest of his life in retirement, the head of the mint, arguing with his peers about his theories, Newton. So it wasn't the case that everybody in his lifetime all changed over. So what happens is you have people and thousands of people who've come across, many of them, the same problems with relativity, with the Big Bang, with quantum mechanics, with the non-existence of models for light, gravity, and all the rest. And those people come together. We have thousands of scientific refereed papers who describe these problems, these flaws in mainstream science, and people will naturally start to work on those together. So when you have a group like we have, where we get together and talk, we're not talking to people who are going to say, you're full of it. I can be an etherist, that person can be a particle theorist, and that other person can be a lattice theory person. But we all talk to each other and we work on those, what possible solutions they are. Now, I do agree with you on marketing. We have to do some of your steps. One of the things in the new website we're coming up with are flaws, so that we can, a person who says, hey, I really like what Gary's saying. Hey, I really like what David's saying and other people are saying. Show me some flaws and explain it to me in a way that I can understand that. And that's what we're doing on our website right now, because we have all these things, but they're not marketable right now. And the idea is we're going to get critical thinkers. We're not going to go to universities and stand on the corner and convince those people going to universities, because they're going to want to get their degrees and their doctorates and their positions. And I have 50% of all high school students in a top physics class on film telling me they will forego truth to get their position. So we're not going to go to those universities.
Yeah, well,
we're going to be on the internet.
I'm not going
to gain people.
I'm not, whatever. I'm not going to worry about what high school students are provoked to say. But anyway, I'm still going to argue.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going to argue that.
Bam, attack. All right.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying that.
I mean, it wasn't important enough for us in the editors of our film to show.
Okay.
Say that it's not important.
Okay. Let's ask.
That's your opinion. That's fine.
Let's ask high school students, because they know the world. Okay. I'm just saying that's not really realistic in my opinion. But anyway, I would argue that as soon as we start talking about our own theories, we're dead in the water. Because as soon as I hear some idiot say global warming isn't happening, I'm done with that idiot. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to play that. As soon as I hear a flat earther, forget it. I'm done. We're done doing that. Okay, nonsense. Forget about it. So I'm just saying you're going to close. Well, I'm just saying you're going to close with all the doors, because yes, as soon as they make themselves clear that they have their own truth or agenda, and they're not really in this fight because they think science is wrong, they think they're right. Okay, and that's the real difference here. Is we have to make this a credible argument against the integrity of the process by which science examines its own theories, and that has to take place. It can't be the editors at some populist science magazine can't be the gatekeeper to what is or is not science. Okay, it has to actually be scientists, and so scientists have to be provoked to take their science seriously, to take their subject seriously, and care about its integrity, and they just don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a pretty complicated mess for sure. I did a talk on one of my videos on this whole war, and they're sort of like science Nazis on both sides. One of the problems is the moment you close the door to someone who says there's no global warming, is you have to say, okay, let's talk about the evidence and let's look at it. Give me your arguments and let me give you mine, and let's see where we're at. Now, the problem is, I've seen actually people, I'm a progressive. I believe that we're destroying the earth, and I say this in my videos. How the weather's being affected and all that, things are going to be affected. Do we know if it's warming up, or we're going to go into a global ice age, or we're going to go into global? We don't know. The problem is that we're not allowing dialogue, and unfortunately, the people who are normally the people who claim, more liberal progressive people who claim to say, let's talk about the evidence, aren't sitting at the table. They literally close people down. Now, in a science debate, The only way you're going, and like you said, if we're going to bring climate change to say that's real, we need to look at the evidence and let both sides
okay, so
argue that evidence. Right now, you're saying shut it down, it doesn't exist. So that's not a debate. You're sort of saying, well, you want to have it go to the judge, but you're not wanting, you're closing off that possibility.
I don't think that's true. So I think that we've had the debate, we had the examinations, like 9/11 truthers. They're not honest people. They're not having an honest debate. They keep bringing up the same evidence.
Wait a minute. You're saying that what you're saying is that the debate is over on climate change, right?
I'm saying that debate about the basic physics of the fact that we have released zillions and zillions and zillions of tons of stored carbon, okay, that was put there 300 million years ago. Okay, that fact that we have taken all that oil and coal out of the ground and shot it back into the atmosphere is undeniable.
Okay, yeah, we are polluting the earth. That's for sure. We're destroying our planet.
We're polluting the atmosphere. We're taking stored carbon, locked carbon, and we're putting it in the atmosphere in huge amounts, not little amounts, huge amounts. And it has a logical consequence when you understand a little bit about the physics about what those carbon molecules do in the atmosphere, what methane does for 100 years when you put it in the atmosphere. And again, if you want anybody to even change sides, let's say all of climate change and all the science is correct. Let's just say that. Now, if that's the case, you have to get people to believe that. You can't just shut them down and become say you guys are idiots. Well, I'm saying
that's what's happening. That's what the left is doing. I'm a progressive. I'm a left. I'm very liberal. But the liberal people are screwing this up.
There has to be a cutoff.
They're becoming science Nazis. They're saying if you don't believe in climate change, you're idiot.
No, it's that you're arguing
the same way as you say if you believe that Einstein's correct,
over and over and over and over
boson is correct, then you're an idiot. You can't say those things.
Area 54. I mean, I'm just saying they bring up the same things that have been debunked 100 million times over, and they just keep bringing the same arguments up, even though you've argued.
Climate change has. There are some things about climate change data. If you talk to geologists and the way we've gone through ice ages and all that. We've only been able to measure this for a short amount of time. What's really going to happen? Are we affecting it? Yes, that's what we can say. How it's going to affect is very hard because we can't even predict the way. We can't even predict. We can't predict weather for 5 days. Now we're going to predict how the atmosphere. What I'm saying is we have to keep the dialogue open. You cannot become a fascist, a scientist fascist. And I'm not saying you are. What I'm saying is that that's what the left is doing.
It's about shyster lawyers who come into the courtroom, okay, and lie and lie and lie and lie over and over again. There's a point where you say, I'm not letting that liar back in the courtroom because he doesn't have one stick of evidence. He never speaks the truth. Every 9/11 truther is a liar. They take evidence.
But hold on.
Over and over again, and they keep reiterating it and reiterating it. Area 54, the UFO loonies. They reiterate the same crap that has been debunked, and they keep using it as evidence. Where you could find on the internet the same Sasquatch images from like 1954, right? And they keep showing them, even though it's already been announced that, yes, that guy was in a suit. Even though crop circles was announced by the people who invented them, who made the first ones, and they pointed out how this is how we made them. Even after that took place, there's still people who say crop circles.
There's a difference between crop circles and affecting the atmosphere and predicting that what's going to happen into the next decade. Those are very different things. So crop circle, yes, they are invented and they're stupid, yes.
No, well,
but to say that climate change and our changes and that it's solved is wrong.
Well, I'm sorry. I think the fact that carbon molecules will increase the surface temperature of any planet that has them in its atmosphere, that science can't be denied. And that's where we're heading. We're heading back to Jurassic Park. Okay, we're heading back to a mean temperature of, whatever it is, 95 degrees. Okay, that's why dinosaurs were so big.
Well, according to the temperature changes right now, we've changed only in fractions of degrees Celsius so far.
Yeah, so
That's a
far,
fact. That's no.
the fact when it gets here, it's going to be too late to fix it. Yes, it's very slow in getting here, but once it gets here, it's going to once a little melting starts, then a lot of melting starts, and then you have the whole pendulum swing, right? That's what it does. That's what ecosystems do. They pendulum swing.
There are parts of the earth that are getting colder as well. Now, what happens is that, again, wait, what the problem is the dialogue. There is none. The left and the extreme left and the extreme right have shut each other off. They become Nazified, fascist kind of people who won't listen to each other. And that's where we go wrong. We have to get together and talk about it.
Well, I think they do talk about it, and the conversation always ends up with the guy who really knows.
Who talks about it are
the guy who really knows what he's talking about points out how the other guy is talking shit. Okay,
when there's evidence that's against what some of the predictions are, they're not looked at by the left. They're not.
Well,
and that's a mistake.
Yeah, whatever. You know, I think it's a mistake to think these agenda files have any sincere effort to defend the truth. The agenda files don't give a shit.
Both sides have become radicalized.
They don't give a shit about the truth.
You told me yourself that you will not listen to
They want to make excuses for our fucking consumption. They want to pretend, okay, that we can have unsustainable growth. They're just pro-life lunatics who think there's no end to how much.
That's a different problem, and I agree. I am a person.
And that's their agenda. That's what they're getting paid for. They're just as paid as the rest of these people. Okay,
absolutely.
The cranks against global warming are being paid by big business.
Listen.
To talk shit.
Okay, here's the thing. We have to get rid of the global warming part, because what's happening is we're polluting our earth and we're destroying it for sure. I right now have not eaten meat for 3.5 years. I eat only whole plant-based diet. 51% of the greenhouse gases come from animal husbandry. So if a person eats meat and they say they think global warming is a crisis, they're going against that. I do that. I practice that. I am all for it. We need to make this a healthy world. We're destroying it. The question of whether or not we're going to affect it as a warming, or if this is going to eventually turn into an ice age, we don't know. And until we stop yelling at each other and saying that each person doesn't know, we're still going to destroy. I am all for the idea. Corporations run this planet. It's hideous. I hate it. We have to change that. Though but to all couch it in this idea of global warming, that's not the way to couch it. We have to couch it as destroying the earth, what that means, whether it's going to warm or cool.
I don't think that.
We have to get rid of the global warming and focus on destroying the earth.
Global destruction. I'm just saying, the pollution is the least of our problems. The land-based pollution is the least of our problems. The problem is cutting all the rainforest. The problem is we're ruining all.
I lived in Brazil for 3 years. They cut the rainforest down 91% of it because of animal husbandry.
Right.
They're trying to raise cattle in the forest.
And why is
it right?
And why is it a threat to the environment? Because it's destroying a carbon sink. Not because it's killing snakes.
There's the thing is we're destroying the earth. That's bad. What the effect is going to be, we really don't know.
Well,
now, what we have to do is stop.
You say that's not a provocative statement. You think that's not a provocative statement?
Destroying the earth. The corporations are destroying the earth.
We don't know. You don't think that's not a provocative statement. You say we don't know to somebody who says, I know the world's round. Okay, I know it's a sphere. All right, we do know.
We're hanging our hats on the destruction on the earth, on whether we're warming or cooling. That's a stupid thing. We are destroying the earth. Doesn't matter what's going to happen. It's hard for us to know.
What pollutant is. Some pollutants you can deal with. Some pollutants you can't. The pollutants we're putting in the atmosphere are the ones we can't deal with. We have no fix for. We can't make an instant sink.
We have to just stop. The United Nations has said explicitly, we have to stop. To me, we're worrying about, for instance, electric cars versus gasoline cars. That's 13% of global warming. 51% of it is from raising animals to eat. We should be worrying about that and not worrying about whether the temperature is going up or down.
Green. Electric cars aren't even green. Okay, electric cars are a problem for smog. It's a problem for a human.
Well, you can't say that if you're Tesla, because they get all their electricity from solar panels.
Yeah, right. Solar panels that were produced in what manner? okay, and have a lifetime of what matter, and have an efficiency of what matter. So I would
Well,
argue.
we're talking about, we have to look at the problem of destruction of the earth. It's shown in many documentaries that the number one destructor in earth by far is our wanting to cut forests down to raise cattle. I mean, that's not good. We should be concentrating on solving those problems and less about yelling about whether a person's a Trump
Well, it really has
person
to do
or
with
not.
how
We need to look
people
at science.
understand why it's a problem. So if you don't understand the why it's a problem correctly, okay.
But see, but the argument becomes on saying, I don't believe in it's going to warm up, and then therefore you're a science denier. What? That's not a good conclusion to that statement.
They call it climate change now. So I mean, isn't that good enough for you?
Well, no. It's not. I don't care what it's called. What I'm calling is when people turn off that they don't talk. I have friends who voted for Trump, and they ask me the question as a scientist because I'm a scientist. They say, "What do you think about global warming?" I said, "We are destroying the Earth. That's for sure." And they agree with me. And I said, what's happening in our prediction of what's happening? We're all arguing on that when we continue to destroy the Earth. Is that good for us? No. Let's refocus the problem. That's my answer to them.
Yeah, well, I don't have any friends. I have ex-friends that voted for Trump. I don't have any current friends that voted for Trump because that's an
I didn't vote for Clinton either.
Well, I'm just saying,
I would never vote for Clinton if it was just between the two. I wouldn't vote.
And there's whatever advocating or in a war walking the wrong way.
Well, I'm going to have to get going here pretty soon. So
all right. So
but anyways, I do want to thank you. I think this idea of getting out the critical thinking, having people think for themselves, make up their minds, that's the most important thing. We do need to try to show them evidence. So even instead of us maybe shutting them off or sometimes people will do that, any of us, we need to always try to engage in a dialogue and try to figure out, okay, what's going on there? Why does this person, say this and why? But then when you look at the Nobel Prizes and you obviously see this is all a closed bubbled world where they just don't care too much about the basics of science, it does get frustrating. And I think what we have to do is continue to get ourselves together, to join together so that the dialogue that is going to put mankind forward, which has never changed. It wasn't any different in Newton's time. Less than 1% of the people who were scientists were believing what anything Newton said was correct. But we see it when we look back on science progression. We have this idea that entire paradigm shifts in his lifetime changed. And that's the same with the Nobel Prize. What we're seeing with Nobel Prizes is that people are getting Nobel Prizes for things that don't exist.
Where do you get the statistic that 1% of the Newton's contemporaries accepted Newton as correct? Where do you get that from?
By reading the history books.
Well, I'm just curious what history book did that analysis.
Well, if you read biographies, because most of them are written about how his stuff is right. But if you read it, but no, listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in his lifetime, if not many biographies will go into that because they get into this worship mode very easy. But some of them who go and read about it find the letters, find the arguments.
I know, but he was
Newton arguing with his peers to his death.
Science. He was the president of science. Every scientist from around the world.
Not because of that.
Every scientist from around the world wanted to meet Newton. They went to Newton.
Okay.
Oh, come on. Newton was
okay. I will find a book where it said he spent the rest of his life.
He had wacky theories about
arguing his ideas with his peers.
Right, but his peers. Should that be what anybody does? Anybody who's on top of the hill is going to have to be accountable on something. But they believed in his theories of the mechanics.
But we have these fantasies. It's never been different. Every time there's a paradigm shift, it's never been different.
Well, that's your story, okay? Until I see evidence that story has something to do with Newton, you're not going to convince me that Newton felt underappreciated or that he got a lack
during his lifetime. Yeah,
that he got a lack of respect from the scientific community of his time, because that,
in fact, a lot of his stuff, including
anywhere near the truth. He was admired by the frickin' world. He was the Einstein of his time.
and Einstein's not correct. So that's weird.
It doesn't matter. We're talking about the fact that everybody loved Einstein. Everybody loved Newton.
Okay, but anyways, even like with his calculus, it was really refined after his death and a lot of his ideas. The good thing about Newton was he was really truly a critical thinker, and one of the good things about him too is that he never admitted to the world that he knew what gravity was, which was quite good. My dad and I's model stands on the shoulders of Newton. What we're talking about is his contemporaries at the time. What he gave to the world is one of the greatest gifts ever given to science. That's not undisputable, and I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying at the time, we romanticize what's going on with these scientists. So that's what I'm saying.
I understand.
So it's not been different.
Newton didn't have any prestige from. Everybody listened when Newton spoke. So if Newton had a point to make, everybody heard it. Newton wasn't under-listened to or underheard or underrepresented. If Newton spoke, everybody listened. Unlike us. We're the underdogs in the story, not Newton.
Well, anyways, like I said, he did have to argue his stuff with his peers. But anyways, again, I think we want to continue to band together to try to get the information out there. I really took to heart one of the things you said, which is, take and get people to understand what the flaws are. And we're actually on our new website, we literally have post types in WordPress that are called flaws. And we're trying to delineate those. And we have literally thousands of papers on that. And we're trying to choose some that we think that will help people open their minds to the idea that some of these ideas that are considered to be totally written in stone aren't. So I think that's definitely a focus we all need to do, for sure. I agree with you.
We have to test them, yes. We have to make a test that they're willing to take. So we have to make a test in a form they're willing to take, where they'll sit there and say,
yeah,
okay,
in one time,
I'm a guy,
yeah.
I know this stuff, I'll take your test, okay, and I'll prove to you why you were wrong about your critique and why that's taken care of, and I'll give you the explanation. We have to make them want to defend their science.
Yeah, in fact, that's interesting that you say that. I agree with you 100% on that. And one of the things about that is we have a guy, his name is, gosh, I'm forgetting everybody's names, but he has been worked 20 years with the Einstein Institute on relativity, and he sent them a series of questions which they had to answer in order in logical form. And this Einstein Institute in Germany is mandated by law by the German government to have to respond to inquiries. And he actually walked them into a corner where they couldn't get out. And so exactly what you said was mandated for special relativity in this case.
An irony on the LIGO thing is that the Einstein Institute is actually one who sent a paper to LIGO claiming that their statistical analysis of the inability for them to have a coincident incident, and they did analysis on the data and they said, you haven't demonstrated that coincidences can't happen. And LIGO was non-responsive to the critique. So that is kind of ironic.
They're not going to be responsive for sure. Yeah, but I'll have to. One of the things is to get Nick Percival. That's his name, Nick Percival. He a really brilliant scientist. He was the one that was showing the Einstein Institute, walking them into a corner, because he would say, okay, this is what Einstein says logically. This is what Einstein says logically. Yes, yes, yes. Therefore, you have this conclusion. And then they got to that point, and they were in a corner. They couldn't get out of it. So maybe sometime we can I can get Nick Percival. I'm going to be interviewing him on my channel. But again, thank you so much. It's always a great talking with you. You have a very a loyal audience as well. I do appreciate them, and I hope that me coming on will give them something to also think about. And let's try to. I think when we take on some of these topics, I think it's a good way for us to a point of departure. So there's always scientific topics we can talk about, and maybe make something like weekly that we do some of these discussions.
Yes, well, agreeing would be boring, so yeah.
Well, in our group, we have people that are, we have 17 models that come together, and we have to agree. We have to work together, and that's why we've learned to be very tolerant and not to be, not to say, hey, you're all wrong, because
Yeah, I just rather we all not wear
know.
wear it on our sleeves. If we don't wear it on our sleeve, if you don't wear it on your sleeve, then if I don't know you voted for Trump, then it's okay. But if you're going to wear it on your sleeve, then we're in trouble. That kind of thing.
No, I didn't vote for Trump, and I
Well,
didn't vote for Clinton. I would never
I'm
vote
just
for
saying
anyone.
that I react to people. Certain there's I'm triggerable. Okay, I got triggers all over me. So
Yeah.
I'm, the
Well,
gun's going
because I'm the
off.
president of an organization, I've had to, been able to, I've have to deal with fights. We have fights among our scientists at conference, and I have to deal with that, and try to listen to both sides, and that's one of the things I have to do by nature of where I'm at. So, but very good. Thank you so much again, Gary. I'm going to have to jump from here. Take care. Thank you to all of your audience. I think you're doing a lot of great work. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So you take care, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yep, appreciate your tolerance. So, okay, till next time.
No problem. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, well, that was interesting. I mean, irritating. No, I mean, fun. What was it, actually? So anyway, I will reiterate my points now that I have this. I have the Newtonian high ground for the moment. That, yeah, the focus has got to be, you got to be gentle, right? This is like you're to knock them down, you have to make them think you're not going to be able to do it. So you have to go in there kind of weak and don't have any good weapons and blah 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 blah, and you have to just say, look, all I'm going to ask you to do is defend your science, right? Your science is supposed to be perfect and great, so you don't mind a few little questions, do you? Like, what's the consequences of converting 3 solar masses into bent space in 1 millisecond? 1 millisecond of that much energy flying through the universe? What do you think the consequences of that would be? Like, everything within a billion light years would start, getting blown to pieces, maybe? Anyway. But just the argument, I mean, again, it's so dangerous to give prizes to stuff that isn't really proven. They really should wait till it gets a little firmer. But anyway, I mean, don't wait till the guy's dead, but you could wait a couple of more years before you hand this fucking shit over to LIGO. See when they get one of their other little LIGOs running, so they have 3 of them. See if the 3 of them can, agree on an event. And then, well, they'd still have to construct an event that makes sense. I mean, when you read it, right? All right, it's 2 black holes, 30 solar masses, in a binary system. Now, the black holes are only 100 kilometers across, and they're only 100 kilometers away from each other. Right? But it's 30 solar masses, and they're swirling around each other at almost the speed of light, right? And so there's all kinds of assumptions built into there. Somehow that matter can approach those speeds anyway, like that's even possible. Where do we have evidence of matter going anywhere near the speed of light? I mean, real evidence, like we actually saw it do it. It's just so bad. But I mean, a binary black hole. Where's even the theoretical diagram of how that happens? How 2 black holes form in a binary form, orbiting around each other. I mean, you could logically say, okay, I could see one of the objects gets really heavy, like a neutron star or something. One object gets really heavy, and as soon as one object gets really heavy, it's going to start sucking all of the loose shit off the other thing. So I don't even know what the theory is of how these things 100 kilometers apart aren't just eating each other up. I mean, how are they so structurally rigid that they can survive that close proximity? But again, how could they do it when they formed? They both became black holes at exactly the same instant? I mean, it's just bullshit. It's made up is what it is, okay? Whether it's bullshit or not, we don't know for sure. But we know it's just made up. It's just I'm just thought of that, and, maybe it could be, possibly, maybe. So it's just like, yeah, you could draw like a Bugs Bunny and you say, okay, well, Bugs Bunny couldn't really happen. So maybe, but maybe a kid could be born in like Venezuela, and his mother ate a bunch of Valium or something, and he could be born with rabbit ears. So maybe that's possible, you know. So, I mean, maybe there's some kernel of something useful in this crap, but I mean, they're giving you the full Bugs Bunny. I mean, they're not giving you the, okay, a kid in Venezuela had rabbit ears. They're not giving you that story. They're giving you this full Bugs Bunny, and there's absolutely nothing in that Bugs Bunny that you can relate to the real world and say, yes, oh, they've proven the conversion of matter into gravity waves, of course. And they've proven that once you make one of these huge, gigantic ripples in space, I mean, it had to be humongous, 3 solar masses worth of bent space. I mean, that it somehow doesn't affect the rest of the universe in any substantial way. It just makes the Earth vibrate a little tiny bit. Just a little vibration. I mean, it has the appearance of just being complete shit. And you people call me evil because I'm saying it looks like shit. I mean, come on, it smells like shit. It looks like shit. You stick a stick in it, it sticks like shit. It's fucking shit. Why are you being so obnoxious? Why are you defending something just made up that is silly looking? I mean, it's silly sounding, isn't it? 2 black holes. We haven't even proven 1 black hole can exist with 30 solar masses, the size of a, whatever, Yankee Stadium. Well, bigger than that, but the size of Manhattan or something. The size of New York State, whatever. 30 solar masses crammed into New York State, swirling a New York State distance away from each other. Come on. Have you ever really seen anything like that in the universe? Have you? Come on. And we haven't even started. That's just the beginning. Now we have to do the event. The swirl around each other and go faster and faster, faster and faster and faster and faster, faster and faster. And somehow, finally hit each other somehow, even though you're going faster, which means you should be going away because you're going faster, you should be escaping. But somehow they crash into each other. And in an instant, release all the energy of 3 suns for their entire lifetime. All the energy, not a supernova. No, that's only 1% of the energy. No, they release all of their energy for their entire lifetime. 10 billion years worth of energy in a millisecond. You really think that kind of stuff is happening out there? Because clearly, if it did happen, it would blow the fuck out of billions and billions of galaxies would just get blown to shit. There's no theoretical way to avoid that. I mean, what's the explanation? How can it be possible to put that much energy into a wave of, whether it's unforce or plus force, I mean, whether it's attraction force or repulsion force, it doesn't really matter what the wave is. A wave that fucking high. It's a fucking tsunami of a fucking wave. We're supposed to believe we didn't see anything. No, we can't see any of it. We can only hear it by listening to the earth move. Yeah, that's the only way you can detect that massive amount of energy, right? You can't see it, you can't hear it, you can't use your radio telescope, can't use anything, can't see all the other stars get lensed, you can't see it any other way. You have to put your ear to the earth and listen to it get crunkled. And I'm the bad guy. I'm the crazy nutter. Oh, fuck you people. Pretty much. Anyway, probably enough. I probably should have to fix these damn settings. I don't know what it is with this camera. I have to find better settings. It's washed part of me out. Side of me is washed out. Oh, that's right. I was supposed to turn the monitor off. That would have been the smart thing to do. Well, I'm not going to turn it off because maybe it won't go back on again. But I should have put a dark image on the monitor. Darkness would have helped. Not dark enough. All right, anyway, won't waste any more of your time. So, yeah, so we'll try to find more people to do this with. So, maybe the Australian guy, some other people, blah, 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 conversation, blah, 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 testing. People can test me, I test them. That would be a good thing to do. Anyway. That'll be all. I don't see anything in the chat. Amazing. Let me see. Nothing in the chat here. Okay, this chat has shit in it. The same devotees and sycophants. Let's see what they said before it all gets deleted. Thank you for broadcasting. Great discussion. Great. It's fascinating stuff. Agreed. New world. Matarchy. I don't know what that means. Nice to see you. Whatever. Cord you. Whatever. Oh, it's the same person over and over again. Alex, I'm here. Ah, well, there you go, Alex. Well, the thing you have to do is PM me, okay, with a time when you're available, and then I'll open the room, and I can send you the link, and then you can get in the room. See, that would be a good way to do it. All right, silent majority, no. Hey, Alex. More things to do. Faith does a lot of typing. I'm here. I don't know what that means. Look at the lion, something or other. Blah, blah, blah. Not really relevant. Yeah, welcome. Broadcasting dig it. Thumbs up. Shared. I don't know. It's the same person over and over again. All kinds of gibberish I don't care about. Give me evidence, not credentials. Yes, that was a good point. Oh, more fluffy crap. Why does light slow down 34% traveling through glass and immediately returns? See, I mean, that's just so stupid, Mars guy. You really must be a Ken Wheeler sycophant. Light doesn't slow down. It travels a longer path. You can understand that glass is made out of really strong molecules, right? I mean, glass is hard. Has lots of molecules in it. And the light is traveling essentially through the pressure of the electrons. So it's not really navigating a straight path. It's kind of doing the fiber optic thing. It's moving between the electrons through the pattern of the electrons. And that pattern is kind of set. So that's why water is even slower. It's because the molecules are in a different arrangement, and therefore the light has to travel even farther to get through water. But it's not going slower. It's just ricochet rabbiting its way through the medium, just like a fiber optic cable. All right, changing speed of light. Ooh, I love this conversation. Expanding Earth is a nutty theory. Absolutely nutter. Let's see, where's this stuff? Gary can't debate. I don't know what that means. Obviously, I can and do. This individual is critical thinker is good. Well, I'm just saying, it's not very critical when you say, oh, yeah, we listen to any Looney Tune with any preposterous nonsense, and his proof can be just, whatever he scratched out on a piece of paper somewhere. We don't need real proof. Proof is for idiots, right? Oh, these comments are a pain in the ass. Is there some way to read them in the bigger box? I mean, it's just annoying as fuck. Look what this little arrow does. Participants, pop out chat. Maybe that'll help. Yeah, it's a little bigger. I can make it even bigger now, I think. Okay, so that's a little help. Read this shit. Whoops, sorry, this crap. I mean, this nonsense, this rubbish. Oh, come on. Oh, grab everything on. Won't grab her. Fuck you, Linux. You're a retard. Come on. I want to make the window bigger. All right, there we go. All right, right, blah, blah, blah. It's fucking shit. You quote your science. Read it. He quotes his biography. Thank you for DissidentScience for coming on. Chili sauce. What the hell fucking retarded names these people have? What club are you in? Who knows what they do? Gary isn't even honest about his triggers. Where was I dishonest? Oh, critical thinking. They're lacking the critical thinking. So yes, people have physics degrees. They don't understand the concept of demanding evidence. Yeah, I think they do. These people are just so fucking idiotic. Let's see. It's fucking shit. What's fucking shit? So you're fucking. You're probably a Tesla nut. Man, this won't scroll properly. Fuck. Einstein equals one stone in German, which is German slang for moron, LOL. So, yeah, that's a great argument. Boy, you really beat the shit out of Einstein with that, didn't you? Yeah, that's just, whoa. What your name means. Mars means dumb motherfucker, too, I bet. I bet somewhere somebody just says Mars. Mars was a shitty god, right? So, you're an idiot. Proven fact now. Let's see. Newton dedicated much of his time to the study of alchemy. Yes, not an entirely stupid thing for somebody of that period to do. He lived in the 1600s, asshole. You know, the world was wide open. They, hadn't really even figured out running water yet, retard. I mean, people are just such obnoxious shitheads. Not one really useful comment in this whole pile of crap. Let's see. I won't even type his name. Talking about, but who cares? That's all they get out of this thing. Gary's idealism on not making them want to defend their science is like trying to make violent political group want to dialogue, like the LIGO example. So again, you really think that the majority of degreed scientists can't imagine behaving any better than a cabal of little Homer Simpsons or something, little petty assholes. No, they're really not. Like I said, they have a prejudice, they have a bit of a bias. They need to have it kind of rubbed in their nose. And once you do that, they'll respond. But you can't do that with walking up to them saying, you're all fakers and phonies. You didn't really learn anything. You're stupider than me. That's not going to work. There's not always two sides. It's just there's right and wrong. So again, this mushy bullshit. People, fuck this shit. No one knows for certain, do they? Yeah, bullshit again. Keep that shit to yourself. Let's see. You quote your science. Read it. He quotes his biography. Again, where did Newton get some lack of respect? In what way did Newton either have a lack of power or a lack of respect? I just can't believe you people really think Newton was some oppressed character. I just can't. I don't even understand how you could believe that. He was the most admired, valued scientist on planet Earth of his time. Again, everybody wanted to go meet Newton. Who knew anything about science? They all wanted to talk to Newton. Yeah, I don't want to open the broadcast, Faith. You should know that one way already by now. Why the fuck would I do that? So a bunch of assholes can go in the room? No. Jeez. Gravitational lensing proves black holes. Yeah, well, that's circle logic. I guess it proves dark matter too. Yeah, sure it does. Newton was an idiot. End of line. Yeah, that's just too fucking precious. So this is why you can't have an open conversation. Is there? Most people are unqualified shit talkers. And if you test them, they'll fail. And it's time to get to the testing part. Hey, my camera's frozen. Oh no, that's the video. Hang out window. Oh, there we go. All right, so now we're done, I guess. Sorry, I thought there might have been something in the chat that was worth it. Nope, not a single drop. I mean, one person asked one rational question, but he did it in kind of a snarky manner. But that's it, you know. I mean, this whole light speed thing is so idiotic. I mean, do people really understand the consequence of breaking the speed of light? I mean, you know, it just can't work in physics to have a force that goes faster than the other forces. It breaks all coherency in the universe. It's so stupid. But anyway, that's all we got is stupid. So, until next time, such report and whatnot. Yeah, he was only going to do a half an hour, so he sort of got forced into more than that. I really wanted to get the LIGO stuff. I mean, there's just so many parts of that whole story that's just such a pile of shit. But I guess we're just going to forever disagree on this idea of you really have to. Two jobs here. First, job number one, knock them off the hill. Job number two, have a fight with each other about who gets to take the ground. Yeah, but that's job number two. Linux is super specially fast. Well, it's not the fastest computer in the world, but this is a little ridiculous. Anyway, until next time. And hey, but it worked. So, and no Windows. Yay. So, I don't think there's anything else. I have to write the test, I guess. I guess I have to do everything. But I mean, I haven't been able to find anything anywhere where any theoretical physicist, besides that Kip Thorne guy, wherever the hell it was, had any conversation whatsoever about the theoretical possibility of converting mass into bent space. I haven't seen that discussion anywhere. And all of a sudden now it's a truth. Huh. Is that the way it's supposed to work? He said so. Not the way it's supposed to work.